Welcome to the Live Compelled podcast. This is Nate Archer, and I'm out here in the wood carving shop /studio/study/prayer shack with Pastor Scotty Matta, and he's my guest today. How you doing today, Scotty?
Oh, doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
You bet. Scotty Matta is our children's pastor and family life pastor at Compelled Church, and this is your...
It'll be 5 years in September, so 4.5. We're in my 5th year. Is that how that works?
Sure. You're in your 5th year at Compelled Church.
Yeah.
And, man, we're so glad you and Melissa came, that God led you. But tell us a little bit, before we jump in here, tell us a little bit about your family.
Yeah, absolutely. So Melissa and I will celebrate 9 years married this summer. And we've got 4 incredible kids that are just a wonderful blessing. Noah is our oldest, and he is 7, almost 8. And then our second child is Abigail, and she just turned 6. And Hannah is 4.5. And then Selah, our baby, is 2.5. So they're just a joy, and also sometimes a source of stress, maybe. But
yeah, I saw you loading up the other night. Didn't look like joy to me, but they sure are cute, and they are a joy.
Yeah.
I love your family.
Yeah.
You're busy. You guys are busy people.
Yeah, for sure. But
and then on top of that, your kids get to share you with 100 other kids.
Yeah.
As well as how many volunteers?
Last count was close to 90.
Yeah.
Yeah, just under 100.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't realize Compelled is a multi-campus, but also a multi-service. We have a Saturday night, 2 Sunday mornings offering full kids ministry, nursery, everything, all 3 gatherings. So I always tell the story when we were looking for a family life pastor, a couple of the people we called, when they heard we had 3 services, didn't even want to be considered.
Yeah.
One guy said, "No, you can just shred my resume. I'm not doing 3 services." Scotty's like, I can do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, of course, you probably don't have a lot of time for hobbies in the season you're in, but what really adds life to you? What brings you life?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that come to mind. I mean, just with the season that we're in right now, first and foremost, my family, my wife and kids. That is pretty much what takes up the majority of our free time. And I love it. I love being a dad. I love being a husband. Raising a family has been the greatest blessing. I always like to say fatherhood is the most incredible but most challenging thing that I've ever encountered. And but it's a blessing, man, and I love it. Something else that I really enjoy is music, and so I'm a musician. I play the saxophone and I play piano, and I sing a little bit. And matter of fact, my first position in ministry was an associate worship pastor at a small rural church in western Nebraska, and so I got to lead worship for a year there, and did some worship ministry and a volunteer role before that. But I'm looking forward to the day when I can do more with my music and get more involved.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I know sometimes I walk back in the office area where you guys are at, and I hear a little gospel coming out of the family life pastor's office.
Absolutely. There's nothing like it, man.
It's great.
Yeah,
it's great. Nebraska.
Yeah.
A guy called me once from Lincoln, Nebraska, wanted to know if I was interested in going out there be his youth pastor. I said no, and I remember he said, "Aren't you even going to pray about it?" I just told him no right when he called. I'm like, okay, I'll pray and call you back next week. And I said no again. That's awesome. Well, how did you come to know Jesus? Like, you have a passion for God, passion for Christ. That was the number one job description that we were looking for, not just somebody who's organized or somebody who's administrative or somebody who can juggle or somebody who's funny. We wanted somebody who just loved Jesus. And when I first called you, you were in Mexico on a missions trip, which was really awesome. You couldn't hardly had time to talk. You'd been working all day and leading teams. But how did you find Christ? Tell Tell us your little faith background there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was raised in the church. My parents were, I would say, first generation saved, kind of in the Jesus movement of the 70s, and on their college campus. And we were raised in church, knew, all the classic Bible stories, the scriptures, memory verses, recited the sinner's prayer, as a kid, and received salvation. I didn't really fully understand, I think, until I was older. And, during my teenage years, I think, like many in my generation, did my own thing for a while. I wanted to see what the world had to offer that was different from how I had been raised, because I was raised pretty sheltered, I would say. And did my thing for a while, and really just led to just a depression and, not finding any worth or value in anything apart from God. And so, in that season, I came back to the Lord, and God really, he kind of had to flip things upside down for me. Looking back on it now, I can see how his hand was at work. But I had just graduated from college with my bachelor's degree in marriage and family studies. At the time, I was going to be a counselor, therapist like my dad. And I got into a graduate program at University of Missouri in Columbia, Missouri. Mizzou, go Mizzou Tigers. And was there for just 1 year. But it's evident that I was not there for the graduate program. The Lord really worked on me during that year, and I realized that the path that I was going was not going to be good, was not going to bring life, and was not going to help me to accomplish the things that I really wanted in life. And so I got out of the program, came back home, and started serving in youth ministry, young adult ministry, worship ministry, and figured out, kind of worked out the call. I had always believed I was called to ministry in youth group. I was probably 8th grade, I want to say. I was in 8th grade at a retreat where I really feel like I felt God's call to ministry. And then I don't know, in my immaturity, I chalked it up as, I just wanted to be my youth pastor. My youth pastor was a really cool guy, and I absolutely loved Pastor Kevin Taylor, and just wanted to be like him, wanted to emulate him. And so, I questioned, was I really called, or was I just wanting to be, PK? And as I worked out that call as a young adult, when God really flipped things upside down, I realized, that was a call that God had put on my life. And so it was in my mid-20s, probably 24. I was 24 years old, 23, 24, when I really started to follow Jesus, and I really developed a relationship with him. Started to understand more of how he felt about me, about his love, and what that meant for me, and the life that he had for me moving forward.
That's great.
Yeah.
So when we called you, I didn't realize it, but you're a youth pastor at, I guess in Texas, at a mega church.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you had a large youth ministry, and I remember saying to Rick, I don't know, he's got a pretty big ministry, but God was moving on your heart kind of toward a family ministry, kind of in the paradigm and the structure that we had. I don't know, how did you come to go from youth ministry to family life, children's ministry?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So in that season in Texas, we were, in student ministry and youth ministry, and, had, close to 200 kids, in our youth ministry. There was some, there's a long backstory to that. The youth group was about 350. And then, there was some, tumultuous things that happened before my getting there, and so we were kind of rebuilding it back up, getting it back to where it was. And, the Lord had started to talk to Melissa and I, just about our future in ministry. We knew that, our position there wasn't going to be, long-term, and, there were a couple things that happened, a couple decisions that were made and staffing things that, kind of pushed along the process, if you will. Sure. And so we started looking into, other ministry opportunities, started praying. I remember we were looking at churchstaffing.com. Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I like to tell people we met online,
That's weird. Let's not say that again.
But Melissa was the one that found the post. And
really?
Yeah. And she read it and she sent it to me and she said, Scotty, you got to read this. It's like you wrote it. This is exactly what you've been talking about. And first glance, I saw children's ministry and I was like, nope. Because I was not interested in a typical kids ministry, right. Traditional, ministry with puppets and clowns and all that kind of stuff. It was not my jam. But once I read it, I was like, man, this is really relational. This is really looking at the family as a whole, right. As a family unit. And that was what we were looking for. And what we started talking about, man, how can we really minister to families right. well in this season? And, and so sent in my resume and got a call from you when I was in Mexico.
Yeah.
And, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Well, I think the Lord really worked that out. And for, listeners that may not understand our philosophy of children's ministry, I didn't want somebody that would come and be the children's pastor because we believe the parents are their pastors in a way.
Yeah.
And that you are going to parent the whole family and give support, resourcing, relationship to not only parents, but also to the 100 leaders that you have. Mm-hmm. And not just Sunday morning, but you oversee, how many JBQ teams do we have now? 3?
Right now we have 3. Yeah.
3
4.
or 4?
4.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you oversee JBQ, you oversee girls. We do traditional girls ministry in Royal Rangers. Very, very successful.
Yeah.
The Sunday morning, the Saturday night.
Yeah.
You got a lot on your plate.
Yeah.
And so when you moved from youth ministry to that, I was glad to find somebody that understood the philosophy and didn't just want to say, I'm going to be the only teacher in kids ministry and I'm going to be the Royal Ranger commander and I'm going to be the JBQ coach, because that's absolutely impossible in how many things we got going.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you asked me when you came if you could meet with dads, and you started that dad group. You want to say anything about that? That's pretty successful, pretty cool.
Yeah, that's been really, really cool. Yeah, so
meet like after the kids go to bed?
yeah, once a month, as it's kind of been seasonal, but it's been really, really cool. One of the things that I identified that was missing pretty early on was a connection for dads, and an opportunity for dads to connect and build relationship. And so we created a small group, Dads of Compelled Kids. And, we started meeting, I think it was the third Thursday for chicken wings. And, just met at a local.
I thought you had ribs. I thought it was a pork event.
It, could have been.
Oh, okay.
Whatever you wanted, it's going to order off the menu. But we went to a local restaurant. We would kind of move locations and do different spots each month, and there's about, I want to say 35 guys that have come at least once or twice.
Yeah.
And we probably, on any given time that we meet, we could have 4 to 12, guys that are able to make it that month. And so
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just been really, really cool. It's been really, really good. And just the feedback that we hear from that, the guys, they don't really know sometimes how to pursue or initiate relationship and connection with other guys. Right. Sometimes they think it's weird, sometimes they think it's
when you go around saying they met online, I can understand that.
Yeah. But just providing an opportunity and a space, to give guys a chance to connect and share what's going on in their lives, what's going on in their marriage, what's going on in their family, and encourage one another.
The reason I love it is because traditional children's ministry is women and children.
Yeah.
And you've made a place for men.
Yeah.
We have a lot of men involved in children's ministry, not just ladies.
Yep.
Because they both equally are discipling the next generation. And I'm thankful for both of them, but I'm glad it's not just primarily ladies.
Yeah.
And we sure have some gifted ones, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Then the big buzz around the church is something you started. And tell us about the grandparent ministry.
Yeah, man, this has been so cool.
I got people quitting EHS because they want to be in your grandparent ministry. I was going to talk to you about that.
Yeah. So really it began, we were making a shift in how we did weekend ministry. We had historically had done our elementary group, kindergarten through fifth grade, would meet all together in what we call the rec room, right? And it was just chaos fun.
They were wrecking stuff in the rec room.
Right? Yeah. But they would have a blast, and it was all play, a lot of connection, great stuff, good stuff happening. Sure. And then we would transition over to the kids' chapel, and we would do our service. We would have a large group game. We would, do praise and worship, Bible story, and then there'd be a video to kind of help, bring it all together, and how is this going to apply to your life as a kid, And we'd go back to the rec room and play crazy until grown-ups showed up, And so I realized, I was like, man, one of the things that I love about Compelled Church as a whole is how we're a small groups church, right? And we really, I love how you preach that, and Pastor Med talks about that as well, that we want to be a small groups church. We're not a church with small groups, right. And how we grow better in circles than in rows. And I was like, man, I don't see that in my kids' ministry on weekends. And so I was like, I need to develop that. And so it had been done before, as I talked with Pastor Matt, who was, my predecessor in the role, but just never really found a good structure, system, a way to do it. So we developed small groups, and I'll kind of speed through the story a little bit, but had gone from all kindergarten through fifth grade to 2 small groups, kindergarten through second and third through fifth, and they would split up into those small groups just after the Bible story, and would have 15 minutes, to talk about discussion questions or an activity or object lesson, whatever it would be, to really drive home the big answer. And then it was 3 small groups. As the kids ministry grew, we started kindergarten to first grade, second and third, and fourth and fifth. And same format with structure. And then we realized, man, the stuff that's happening in small groups is really, really invaluable. And so we changed the order of service and the flow to where kids are dropped off in small group. They have about 15 minutes where they do something that's related to the big answer or the Bible story for that day. And the small group leaders are building relationship and community with the kids. And then they all come together for large group in the kids' chapel. And then after the Bible story, they go back to small group once again, and the grown-ups will pick their kids up from small group. And so the grandparents ministry, this is where this came in. I wanted to incorporate generational ministry in how we were doing small groups.
Love that.
And so I started praying and asking the Lord, how are we going to do this? And I really felt like I needed to ask our seasoned saints to partner with a generation below, whether it was a parent or a young adult, and minister to kids. And so kind of covering 3 generations, and it was really, really cool. And I was excited about it, and it was great. And so I started pitching that idea, got probably 4 or 5 seasoned saints, involved on the team, started serving. And after about 6 weeks, they started dropping. And I was like, man, what's going on? And so I was meeting with them, and they're saying, hey, this is just too much. It's too crazy. The kids are they're wonderful, but it's a lot. The environment is just to whatever, maybe fill in the blank, it was just too much. Right. And I was like, man, I get it. I understand that. So how can we still keep this generational ministry that I feel like God wants to do in this? And one of the seasoned saints is Sharon Haxton. And she came to me and she said, I love what's happening with Compelled Kids. This is really awesome. But being in a small group with the kids is not my jam. That's not my thing, and she said, but I want to stay involved. What can we do, to keep us involved? And so that was kind of the birth then of the grandparents team. And so we talked about having a grandma and a grandpa of the day, or of a gathering, and they would just be available. They would float around. They would pop in and out of the small groups. They would check on the pre-K kids. They'd jump in the nursery if there was a need there. And they wouldn't be in any kind of authority role, but just to love on the kids and provide another layer of ministry. And it's been really, really cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that idea. I love that it's implementing and those seniors. Because sometimes in a church like ours that is growing, that has a lot of youth and young adults, has a lot of young families.
Yeah.
those senior saints, those seasoned saints, those retirees, they can feel like, am I needed?
Yeah.
And maybe they're seasonal, maybe they don't have the energy level, but there's definitely a place for them to pour into the next generation at Compelled Church.
Yeah, and, absolutely.
Still feel significant and valued. And
that's
when they have so much to offer. Man, I just love my grandparents. Yeah. I love the old people when I was young, rake lawns with them, and they'd invite you in for a soda and a cookie or something. And I think so highly of that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, one thing in our culture that we highly value and is that every one of our leaders really know Jesus, and that our pastors are connected to the Lord, because we can't give what we don't have, and we have to slow down and be with God and take time with Jesus. And we've all done emotionally healthy spirituality and emotionally healthy relationships, and try to change the scorecard of success to not numbers driven, but disciple driven and heart driven. So in that, do you have any revelations or discoveries that the Lord has given you that maybe you read in your journey or has been in a book that impacted you lately or years ago, and they kind of are some of your navigation to this day? Anything like that?
Yeah, so in that season I was talking about before, and kind of part of my story, where I came back home after graduate school and started getting involved in church and pursuing a call. One of the things that I learned about in that time was two-way journaling, and got my hands on the book. I think it's called 4 Keys to Hearing God's Voice, something like that. Mark Verkler.
Mark Verkler.
Yeah. And just loved that idea of writing out what I felt or sensed the Lord was saying. Grabbed a few key mentors in my life and had them review what I felt like the Lord was saying to confirm, this is from the Lord, or this is maybe getting a little off,
Sure.
And there was a year and a half where I had been laid off from the job I had in social services and couldn't find a job. This was 2010.
Yeah, economy was tough back then.
It was.
Remember those days.
Yeah. And so from 2010 to sometime in 2012, I was working odd jobs, different things here and there, just to help pay the bills. But there was I had a lot of time, and that was really when I developed this habit and this discipline, if you will. And I was just thinking about this. Actually, I just messaged my mom to see if any of those notebooks that I was writing in 10, 12 years ago are still around. And so we're going to try and find those, because I want to go back and read those.
She's going to read them.
I did tell her, I was like, you may not want to open them up, but
nobody's reading my journal.
Yeah, but that's one thing for sure. And just, the understanding, the intimacy that Jesus desires with us. I had learned, and I honestly don't know where I first heard it, but I learned about the original word, original Greek for knowing God, right? And I believe it's pronounced gnosko, and it references. Actually, I think Mark Verkler was writing about it in his book. And it references that deep relational intimacy, and just the it doesn't get much deeper than that, right? It doesn't get much closer than that.
We sometimes think of the word know as just a mental, academic, intellectual, I know something, meaning I have a knowledge or an awareness of it.
Right.
And that Greek word gnosko means like how we know our wives, like Adam knew Eve.
Right.
That's a whole level of knowledge.
Yeah.
That's an incredible, powerful word.
Yeah, it really is. And so I really, as I was understanding that, and the desire that not only I had to deepen and understand the intimacy with the Lord that was available, but understand that Jesus wanted the same, that Jesus wants to have that level of intimacy and depth to our relationship as well. And that was really, really powerful. And that's always stuck with me. And then some other things I love, Romans 8 is probably my favorite chapter in the Bible. During that season, I remember writing it out on note cards and memorizing it probably couldn't recite it for you today, but the parts of it, that really stuck out to me, and being free, having freedom, and the role of, the Holy Spirit in a believer's life, and not being controlled by your flesh, and, man, there was another, verse, Zechariah, 3:17, the Lord dances over you and sings over you. My translation may not be entirely accurate, but that came at a time I had a leader speak that over me, prophetically, when I was walking through some of that depression, and that I wasn't feeling very worthy or valuable, and that has stuck with me. Somebody bought that for us when we transitioned out of Nebraska into Texas. One of our ministry friends, who didn't know that story, had gotten us a wall hanging with that verse on it, and it was just really, really cool. And it's still in our house. Yeah. Nice. So, yeah.
What's your dream? Like, what's your dream for family ministries at Compelled?
Yeah, man. What I dream about for family ministries and for the kids, of Compelled Kids, I want Compelled Kids to be a safe haven, a place where kids just flock to, that they come running to, and that they can be safe. They can feel safe inside and out. A place where they'll learn and know, again, that intimately know Jesus and the truth of His Word. I think especially in this day and age, truth is really, really important, and the Word of God being true, and that kids can take Jesus at His word, that Jesus really is who He says He is, and all of the things that we read about Him are true, and so I also want to continue to see. Kids that we're discipling, bringing kids that don't know Jesus, and those kids meeting Jesus at Compelled Kids, and then taking Jesus back to their families, and the family then being forever transformed. And that idea of generational faith and legacy of faith, that's really, really important to me. And I hope that, what we're doing at Compelled Kids is helping make a difference in that way. And not for fame, not for recognition, not for an attaboy or a pat on the back, but just for, as a kid gets older, as our kids get older, they can look back and remember their time at Compelled Kids as being a building block in their journey and in their faith walk.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm closing up here. I'm thinking of everything you do with your job. Okay, your calling at Compelled. On top of that, you got 4 kids waiting for dad to come home. Mm-hmm. Plus, you got these events. We do VBS with 400 kids. You got Ranger campouts. You got JBQ. You help coach Noah soccer, or you're involved in that. And So what would you say to the parents that are where you're at? You got a full-time job. You got all these other events. Life is busy. Well, could you encourage mom and dad today with their life with God, with their parenting, just anything you want to close with as being a busy parent yourself?
Yeah.
The demands of parenting, and then you got a marriage you want healthy.
Yeah.
You want to spend time with Melissa. You want to make your lead pastor happy.
Yeah.
You got a lot this is our world.
Yeah.
It's everyone's world.
Yeah, absolutely.
How could you encourage moms and dads out there today before we close?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the big things that shifted for me was when I realized, and this was, through emotionally healthy spirituality, that there isn't, I was compartmentalizing what is sacred and what is secular, and understanding that it's all sacred. It's all under God. It's all, His hand is in it all. And so the nights when I'm up in the middle of the night cleaning puke, as much as I hate it, that's part of the deal. It's God's in that. Parenting, disciplining my kids, missing the mark and disciplining my kids, and having to go back and ask for forgiveness, and the household tasks, the coaching, the sports teams, all that. God is in it all. And
that's good.
And when I realized that, it was really refreshing and almost relieving the pressure and burden of having to check off the list of time with God, reading my word, prayer, all that stuff. And it all just kind of became a part of it. And so I would encourage parents like, hey, look for God in everything. Really check your expectations on what you expect it to look like when you're spending time with God or connecting with Jesus, and give some freedom to understand that, Jesus will show up in the unexpected. And in those times where it seems like everything is piling up, there's little hope for the future, it's just draining and exhausting, Jesus is there too. And to see him there and be willing to let him into those moments really can change your world. And
that's awesome, Scotty.
Yeah, and it's really good. I'm still working on it myself. I haven't quite figured it out or mastered it myself, but these are things that I have come to understand and want to develop.
That's great, Scotty. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Pastor Scotty Matta. You're a blessing. You're a blessing to Compelled. You're a blessing to so many families. You and Melissa are a gift to Compelled and our area, because I know you're involved in the elementary school and all sorts of stuff. Yeah. So thanks for coming. Thanks for the interview.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Live Compelled. And man, if you love this, share this with somebody. Please subscribe. And every couple weeks, another edition will be coming out. But we're so glad you're here. Have a great day and make sure to live compelled.